Hi, Jess. How's it going?
Great, Jason. Thank you for having me today. I'm really looking forward to be talking about the meaning of National CP Awareness Day and a little bit about what CP is and what Flex for Access is doing in support of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, and just a brief introduction?
Of course. So my name is Jess Silver. For those of you who don't know me, I am from Toronto, Canada, and I was born in Toronto. I was born in Canada, and when I was born with a condition called cerebral palsy, which affects my ability to walk independently and affects my a lot of my motor skills. And but that has not ever stopped me from achieving anything that I want to achieve in my life. I am a communications and marketing professional, as well as also being an adaptive personal trainer and founder of Flex for Access, an adaptive fitness consultant. And just as some facts further from my professional background, I'm also someone who's incredibly passionate about sports. I've been a sports fan my whole life, particularly loving basketball and soccer and tennis, and always felt as though I relate to athletes who experience adversity and being similar to their athletic journeys, having my own journey, um, defining the meaning of life through navigating challenges because of CP, but again, not allowing that adversity to stop me. And I was inspired to found Flex for Access to create awareness around CP and the importance of adaptive fitness promotion.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So, you touched on this a little bit, but I just want to ask and see if there's anything else you can add about just what CP is and how does it affect your movement. I think there's some people, it's something we hear about, but don't know a lot about.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question because I always feel that it's important to give people more of a deeper dive into actual condition and the knowledge of the fact that every condition affects every individual differently. So CP is a neurological condition that affects an individual's ability to walk and affects an individual's motor skills because the brain injury that occurs, like CP is caused due to a brain injury, and mine occurred at birth because not enough oxygen reached my motor cortex. And so that's how the injury occurs. And it's important to note that for every individual, the way that CP affects them looks different. So it's very broad spectrum. So some individuals that have CP are not able to walk. Some individuals are able to walk, but their gait is affected. So the way that they actually walk is affected. So, for example, they drag one foot or one foot doesn't go down on to the ground when they're walking. For some individuals, it's both one arm and one leg. I have spastic diplegia. So what that means is that basically what that means is that both my arms and my legs are affected, and one leg is more affected than the other and one arm is more affected than the other, but diplegia meaning both sides and both limbs. But it's important to note that for every individual it looks different, but also to note that it's not a progressive it's CP is not a disease or a disorder, so it doesn't progress. But what's important to note is that, as we age, like every individual, your body changes. And individuals that have CP, they're no exception to that. Our bodies do change. And so if one does not engage in, for example, exercise and movement, our ability to move, having the condition will be further affected and our muscles will atrophy. So that's why it's very important for an individual with CP to engage in exercise and consistent movement so that can build strength and continually be able to move.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, really appreciate the explanation. Great information there. So, what misconceptions you think people might have? You touched on this a little bit about CP and people with CP, and maybe something about their movement, but I think there are some misunderstandings and things like that? Is there anything you could clarify?
Yeah, I have lots of stories and lots of anecdotes that I can touch on. Could be a whole separate interview, but I'll touch on it briefly. Really, the greatest misconception that other individuals have about individuals that have disabilities in general, and specifically with CP, like, I've been subject to this in my own life, is that individuals believe that they have an understanding of what CP is, like you said at the very beginning of of this discussion. But, and then when I ask them, so what do you know about CP? They look at me and they go, oh, you're in a wheelchair because you broke your back and you're paralyzed. And I go, no, I just told you that I have CP. Um, do you really know how my condition affects me and how CP affects individuals? And it's kind of like you eloquently said, individuals hear certain things attributed to a condition and they think they know how it affects individuals. But the greatest misconception is that individuals don't. And I would say too that it's very shocking to me that CP is the most common neurological condition amongst babies and amongst individuals, that are born with a neurological condition. And yet so many people don't know that, what CP is and how the condition affects individuals. So I was prompted to create Flex for Access, which is a registered nonprofit organization for adaptive fitness and sport promotion within the mainstream. I was prompted to create it so that individuals have an understanding of what CP is, how it affects every individual differently, and the importance of adaptive fitness and sport as a way to manage that. And what shocked me is that, as we're just talking about, so many people think they know about the condition, and yet they don't, or they know they know what they hear, but it's a condition that affects over 70 million people globally.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot. I know I still have plenty to learn about it, exactly, even as an adaptive fitness instructor. So it's great to, connect with people like you and actually just try to get more educated and learn more about these kinds of things.
And the greatest and another misconception that people have,
Yeah.
because we're talking about adaptive fitness and movement, and you're an adaptive fitness personal trainer as well. One of the biggest misconceptions that exists out there is that an individual like myself who uses a wheelchair as a mobility aid cannot engage in high performance functional fitness, or they cannot move outside of using their wheelchair or their assistive mobility aid, whether that's a walker or canes or crutches. A lot of people, when they see a wheelchair, when they see an assistive mobility device, they automatically assume that that individual is quote unquote confined to the wheelchair. And the reason why I'm so driven and motivated to do the work and invested to do the work that I do every day is to change that understanding, to allow individuals to understand that just because I use a wheelchair as a mobility aid does not mean that I am my wheelchair. There is a lot more to me than in it being an individual that uses a wheelchair to move around. And I endeavor to create awareness around the importance of adaptive fitness and sport for people to understand that through engaging in adaptive fitness and sport promotion, individuals that have physical challenges can in fact make greater improvements in their conditions, and by virtue of that, having a greater quality of life because they engage in adaptive fitness and sport promotion.
Exactly. That's great information. I mean, you can still train, you can get out of the chair, you can still move around, you can work with all sorts of equipment, right? Different adaptive fitness equipment. I know that's a big part of what you do in the nonprofit, right?
Yeah, and also use our bodies too. I think the
Yeah.
greatest, another important point to touch on, which you appreciate as an adaptive fitness personal trainer, I'm sure, is that we don't need a lot of fancy equipment. there's a lot we can do with our own body, which is, I always say, our body is the strongest vessel we have. There are so many body weight exercises that one can do, for example, like a plank, and squats without using equipment, just using our own body. And yeah, that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations. And I'm sure you're going to ask me about the upcoming campaign that Flex for Access is hosting to raise awareness of CP and get people engaged.
Mhm.
But I'll touch on that about, what people can actually do to raise awareness, and how Flex for Access is a registered nonprofit organization which facilitates opportunities for adaptive fitness and sport promotion, how that's actually done, and where the funds from the nonprofit organization are actually allocated to,
Yeah,
and why this is, why are we here? Why is this important?
absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. You can move your body, get out of the wheelchair, get down on the floor, or move around. Everybody can do so much more, when it comes to like squatting. You mentioned the plank, uh, working off of your back, rolling over, being on your side, or, using the stairs or
Functional movement.
yeah,
and
functional
and
movement.
and for individuals that have physical disabilities or acquired injuries, whether those disabilities are congenital, so being from birth, or acquired due to an accident or an injury, what's most important for practitioners to know, and for personal trainers like yourself and myself to know, and for us to share that message in the community, is that individuals that have challenges are the individuals that need to be moving more. Those are the individuals that need to engage in training more than your, quote unquote, able-bodied, uh, quote unquote, I hate using this word, but normal,
Yeah,
athlete or individual that does not have a visible disability. The individuals that have limitations actually need to engage in it more, so that they can learn how to execute functional movement, improve their quality of life, and also, by virtue of this, improve their physical condition and the way that CP, for example, affects them.
exactly. Okay. And you, speaking of movement and how everybody needs to get moving and do, especially what's functional, you touched on something I want to go back to from earlier called atrophy. If you could briefly explain the importance of that, and does that affect everybody?
Well, yes, I will say, so I'll answer your question. The latter part of your question, saying that atrophy is not something that is exclusive to an individual that has CP or other limitations. Any individual, yourself included, if you were to stop exercising today or tomorrow, and did nothing to move your body, your muscles would atrophy. What does atrophy mean? It means that your muscles would stop developing, and they would not have the capacity for strength, and to be able to execute the functions that they're actually, that they actually necessitate. So every muscle in our body has a different function that it serves. If we stop moving, those muscles atrophy, so they stop developing, they stop being strong, and being, firing in the way that they need to. And essentially, our muscles, everybody knows that if muscle is not used, it turns to fat. And basically, it would just be tissue that is not used. And then what happens in an individual that has a disability like CP is, if your muscles atrophy, they either lock up due to spasticity. And I know I'm getting kind of scientific here,
All right.
so it can be complicated. They'll become spastic. So what that means is they won't be able to easily move through a normal or close to normal range of motion, full range of motion, because they'll get tight. And when muscles get tight, they get shortened. And that's already an issue that an individual that has CP, like myself, who has spastic diplegia, has to encounter. But with atrophy, with a lack of movement, with a lack of your muscles receiving the oxygen that they need in order to develop and function properly. And with a lack of hydration, which is really important for muscle development and quality tissue, there's further atrophy, and the muscles will either lock up or they'll become completely limp, and a person will and the individual will not be able to really carry themselves in any position that they need to be in. So functionally at that point it becomes very difficult, outside of the conversation of strength, but function, day-to-day function will become almost impossible, because one will not have quality muscle, and one will not be able to execute movements that one needs to for every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that functional movement component is key. So getting out of a chair, using the stairs, or just being able to get up from the floor, something that you're going to need to do in everyday life. So taking
And
care of
also,
the tissue.
yeah, and also with more, the further that one's body and one's muscles atrophy, there's also these factors that we need to take into consideration, which is that an individual fatigues faster, so becomes more tired faster, and will not have the stamina and endurance that one needs day to day to carry out day-to-day functions, whether that's movement or job function, or to engage with one's siblings, or like regardless of what it is that you do, you'll fatigue faster. And also something that's important to note, which none of us like to talk about as part of the disability community, but it's a fact that if we experience more atrophy, we're also going to conversely experience more pain, because our muscles in our bodies are not moving properly, and it'll be harder to move when we do need to move, and result in more pain and the inability to move well because of the atrophy that has occurred. And that extends beyond muscle, it goes to joints as well, which
Exactly.
becomes a more serious issue.
Yeah, the human body is just so incredible. But yeah, we got to get moving and take care of the muscle, like you're saying, our muscle tissue, the quality of our muscle tissue and our range of motion. Use it or lose it, and you don't want to have your muscles start to lock up more. And then, like you're mentioning an important factor there, it can be painful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I think us other people might not realize that too. Like, so, I think people, they understand pain, like they have it in their lower back, or they have it in their neck or their shoulders. They're carrying some sort of like muscle tension or something like that. But you may not know, like, well, what's causing this? Where does this come from? Or it's just like, oh, this is like, my back's just killing me today, or what is it? But really, you may get some relief actually if you're moving regularly and working out and taking care of that.
100%. Yeah. And I will be the first to attest to that, whenever I do experience any pain, as soon as I engage in exercise, because, another point that we should touch on without getting too technical is that when we engage in exercise, that produces different hormones within our brain, which then communicates with the rest of our body, right? And so when you engage in exercise, something like which are called endorphins, spike and are produced, and those endorphins make us feel good, and we don't feel the pain that we were feeling before. And other hormones like dopamine, for example, are produced. And so what happens when we exercise is essentially our body and our brain get to be transported almost into another state, and it causes growth of these hormones, which is very healthy actually, a higher production of, there's a hormone called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Can't speak this morning, sorry. And what that is basically, it means that more connections within our brain as we engage in movement are able to be made. So our neurons actually produce more connections, which allow us to learn new movement. So what's really important to realize, and you were just touching on the fact that saying, oh, if my back hurts today, people think it's just my back, right? Or if someone's neck hurts, oh, it's just my neck. But something to realize is that with CP, with a condition like CP, it's very much systemic or systematic, right? So what I mean by that is the pain is not just in a localized area. Oftentimes it can seem like it is, but it's systematic. So everything is connected. And like if one thing is hurting or one region of the body is tighter, that tightness is going to translate somewhere else within the body.
Right.
So we need to realize the importance of exercising as being something we do every day, all the time. And for individuals that have physical limitations because of disabilities like CP, it's something that we need to strive to engage in every single day in order to prevent that atrophy and in order to prevent, a dependence on, for example, pain medication, which can result in addictions, right? So, that there needs to be a sense of urgency on the part of practitioners and strength and conditioning coaches, personal trainers, to want to work with the demographic that we call special populations of individuals that have physical disabilities and injuries, so that it's a preventative, not something that's reactive for trying to help one manage their condition. But how can we prevent further atrophy and further, negative adverse effects from occurring once an individual has a condition like CP?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are all really great points. I'm glad you brought up the hormones and the BDNF. So that's, yeah, particular kind of hormone or factor where I've heard that called like miracle grow for your
Yeah,
brain. So you can really learn new movements, all sorts of things, but uh, also it'll even help you, exercise will even help you academically because you'll
of
be
course.
making
Yeah,
so many more brain connections. You will have the chemistry in there to solidify those brain connections and even boost your academic performance. Your brain and your body, like you're saying, it's all connected. It's all chained together.
yeah, they're one. And I think what's really important for people to realize, for people that have physical uh, disabilities, the challenge is that, I'm talking to you right now, and I'm not cognitively affected. So my cognitive abilities, thankfully, are not affected by my CP. But having said that, when it comes to movement, I'm sure we can have many conversations about this, and you experience this with your clients if you've worked with clients that have CP or similar conditions, is the fact that they might know what you're asking them to do in terms of a movement. If you ask them to bang out for you 5 squats or do 10 push-ups, or do, say for example, tricep dips in their chair, right? They know what you want them to do, but depending on the day that they're having, if they're more spastic, or let's say they're more tired,
Hmm.
you will know that their brain does not communicate with their body the same way that yours does, for example. So they know what you want them to do, but physically it's a lot more challenging to execute that movement properly because of the way that the impulses are processed when it comes to physical movement in CP. So, talking about everything being connected, it surely is very connected. And one of the limitations that I, for example, face every day is the recognition of the fact that although I know what one wants me to do and I know what I want to do consciously, my body won't always execute
Sure.
the way that I want it to, right? So that's part of the adversity that I, as an individual who has CP, has to face. But we do a lot of advocacy work around that, and I actually teach professionals how to navigate that with clients that have CP.
Yeah, that's another great point. Sometimes you gotta check in with your client, the person you're training, and get on the same page, see how they're how they're feeling at that exact time,
Mhm.
whether sometimes something could be a little easier, it could be a little harder, it's uh what's the right word? It's subjective.
It's
It's-
subjective and it's not always conscious too. It's not for me, for example, when I've worked with other trainers aside from the trainers who I worked with who know me really well or knew me really well and my body really well, the way that my body worked. Some trainers would say to me, "Oh, you're just being lazy. You don't feel like doing it."
yeah.
And I would have to say to them, "No, I'm not. I know what you want me to do, but my brain right now is not communicating with my body and I can't execute the movement. Can
Right.
we backtrack a little bit? And can you give me some tactile cues, some cues that, are by touch, for example, so that I'd be able to activate certain muscles." So sometimes it's a conversation that the client, if they're able to have with their trainer, has to have too, to say, it's not that I don't want to do this, it's that my body and my brain are not allowing me to do this right now. Can we take a break? Let's say for a couple of minutes, and then hopefully after I rest, my body and my brain will be communicating and I'll be able to execute.
Exactly. So last couple of questions here, and I want to ask about your book. I believe you wrote a book called Run. Did you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to write it, and where can we get it? What's it about?
Yeah. So thank you for asking about that. Run an Uncharted Direction is my memoir, which I wrote. Um, it took me on and off. It took me 7.5 years to write, but I wasn't writing all the time. It was between work and doing many things that I have on the go. But it took about 7.5 years on and off, and it is my memoir. So it is my story of my life. Um, and really, the main theme of it, why it's called Run, an Uncharted Direction, is because it uses sport and fitness as a metaphor for life and as what allowed me to navigate through, again, the adversity that I have faced as an individual that has CP, and navigating the world as an individual who's quote unquote different from 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 my peers because I have a visible disability. But again, I've never allowed it to stop me. And so it tells my story from, from my young age. And then when I started school, everything that I had to encounter from verbal and, physical bullying to not feeling like, some days not feeling like I wanted to go to school. But also it really talks about the importance of carving out my own identity in the world. And it's called Run an Uncharted Direction because I believe that we're all on an uncharted path. And it's actually our unknowns that make us stronger and make us more inspired to seek deeper within ourselves and to explore new experiences. So the book actually also covers a lot of travel experiences that I've been fortunate to have in my life and how those have shaped me. And I'm a huge basketball fan, as I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. And so a large part of the book talks about the athletes that I looked up to in the game of basketball and what sport has meant for me in my life, particularly basketball, but I also mention other athletes, and understanding that, as I mentioned before this question was brought up, that my journey is very similar to that of an athlete. And the first chapter of the book is actually called Seekers of Novelty. And what that talks about is it talks about how we're constantly looking for what's ahead of us, what's new and in front of us, what we don't know, right? We're trying to seek the new. And I actually talk about the importance of seeking the new, but also being grounded and appreciating the moments that are in front of us for their meaning. And also realizing that sometimes negative experiences, those experiences of adversity, actually empower us to run faster and harder on our uncharted journey. And the later parts of the book also talk about my career and becoming an entrepreneur and what that has meant. And for those of you who are interested in purchasing copies of the book, you can find Run an Uncharted Direction available on Amazon. And also my newer book, which I published in November, called Life's Lava: Quotes, Values, and Reflections that light our souls and color our days with reason, is also available on Amazon.
Oh, very cool. Okay. We'll have to talk more about that, I think, another time, because a big part of my program in Uncharted Direction, you said, it's the health and fitness hero's journey.
Yeah.
Being on that path and taking the journey. We'll have to talk more about that.
I'd be happy to talk to you more about it. And actually, I use the book as often as a teaching tool through working with fitness professionals like yourself. Because so much of the book is also about my fitness journey, and how that changed the trajectory of my life. What does fitness and sport mean to me? So I'd be happy to continue the conversation. But now, why don't we talk a little bit about the upcoming fundraising campaign that Flex for Access is hosting?
Yeah, that's my last question. Exactly it. So
okay.
When is CP Awareness Day and how can people participate?
So National CP Awareness Day, you'll notice I'm wearing green in support of CP. And I encourage everybody to be wearing green on March 25th, which is National CP Awareness Day. And Flex for Access is hosting a fundraising campaign called the CP Power Hour. And I encourage everybody to get involved and participate in supporting Flex for Access and National CP Awareness Day. So how you can do that is by wearing green and doing a workout for an hour that is cardio and or push-pull based. So doing push or pull strength movement exercises. And I would like for everybody to record a part of that workout, because you won't be able to record the whole hour and post it on social media. Record part of that workout and use the hashtag Flex for Access on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in order to raise awareness of CP and also Flex for Access, which is my registered nonprofit organization that facilitates opportunities for adaptive fitness and sport promotion within the mainstream. So do a cardio or push-pull based workout. And then the other part of the campaign is to also post a video that's up to a minute long, where you talk about an experience that you faced in your life of adversity and how that experience of adversity has reshaped your perception of life as a whole. And also post that video with the hashtag Flex for Access as well. And then participants are encouraged to also donate to Flex for Access to help us continue to facilitate opportunities for adaptive fitness and sport promotion, and also purchase adaptive exercise equipment for affiliated facilities at www.flexforaccess.ca, or you can do an e-transfer to Flex for Access at flexforaccess@gmail.com.
All right, that's perfect. So I'm looking forward to CP Awareness Day.
Thank you.
Participate. We're going to include all the links so people know where to donate. They know how to participate. And thank you very much for talking with me today.
It was my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to doing more collaborative work together. And the last thing I'll say is, for those individuals who are not active on social media or would not feel comfortable in posting your videos of your CP Power Hour workout, although I'd love to see them and have them be part of National CP Awareness Day, I understand that not everybody has a presence on social media or is comfortable posting on social media. So for those individuals who want to still support Flex for Access, you're welcome to make donations and they're appreciated at www.flexforaccess.ca, or as I said, you can contact me and do an e-transfer to Flex for Access at flexforaccess@gmail.com in support of the organization if you don't feel comfortable posting your videos. But I think it'd be really cool to see the different CP Power Hour workouts. Again, you don't have to post, you're not encouraged to post the whole hour because you won't be able to post the whole hour workout. Post a part of your workout and also a video talking about an experience of adversity that's under a minute long. But if you don't want to post, you're encouraged to donate at www.flexforaccess.ca. Thanks very much, guys, and stay strong and flexing.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Talk to you
Jay.
later. Yes,
Be in
bye-bye.
touch. Bye.